Hey, everybody. Welcome to the virtual Homebuyers seminar. I'm Kent Miller, and for about the next 30 minutes, we're going to guide you through the steps of buying a home. From your vision in your mind of your perfect dream home to the keys in hand at the closing table. We're going to chat with some professionals that guide us through the process, and along the way, we're going to answer a lot of your questions. As a real estate professional and also wearing the hat of a consumer in the real estate world, the process of buying or selling real estate can be very, very complex. There are so many moving parts. But with the right team behind you, you're positioning yourself for success. Whether you're buying your first home or you're buying a second home, a larger home or smaller home, this is your third home you're buying. Besides consulting with a real estate professional like myself, your very first conversation should be with a mortgage representative. Before running out to any open house and falling in love with any home out there, you absolutely need to know what your range of mortgage capability and comfortability is. And here is someone that can guide you through the very first step. Greg Ahern from Contour Mortgage. Welcome, Greg.
Hey, Ken, how you doing, buddy?
I'm doing well. Thank you for joining us, Greg. I appreciate it. So, Greg, let me ask you a question. A couple of questions I had leading up to today's home buyer seminar. And people had messaged me during the week with a few questions asking, why is it so important to consult with a mortgage professional before venturing out into the real estate world? I mean, why not call me first as the realtor? Why call Greg first?
Yeah, well, I mean, you can always call, a good realtor like yourself, Ken. I mean, a lot of those first calls do get to a realtor. And then the best realtors will have that conversation, but then filter those people onto somebody like me. And the reason is because we can tell you what you can afford. So maybe you can afford more house than you realize, or if you're over budget, we can tell you that too. So you're not wasting a whole lot of time. So yes, people can call me first. They can also call you first for an initial consultation, and then, give me, have me take over from there.
Okay. All right. Well, Greg, I mean, as a future homeowner, I mean, what kind of information or documentation, because this is a question I get often from buyers. I'll be honest with you. Sometimes buyers feel a little bit intimidated perhaps about making that first step, about giving over the documentation. So as a home buyer, what kind of information or documentation could I expect to provide to a bank to have my credit run, to get in the position to purchase a home?
Sure. Yeah. So there's two questions they ask, or illustrate one thing and then ask the question about it. And so the first thing is, if people are intimidated, they really shouldn't be. Well, I guess maybe they could be these days. Customer service isn't what it used to be at one point. But if you're talking with a professional who understands how intimidating the process can be, and I kind of pride myself on that, dealing with a lot of first-time home buyers, but I understand how it can be a little bit stressful or intimidating. But we try to take it easy on people. I usually open up the conversation with asking what questions they have first before jumping right in to asking them about them and their personal details and financial details. So we try to take people by the hand and let them know that it's just, not as painless as they think it's going to be. So having said that, once we move on to the interview or the application, really all the documents that people have is going to be specific to their exact situation. Their specific documents is going to be specific to them and their situation. So once we go through the application, ask all those questions after their initial questions are answered, then we'll be able to tell them these are the exact documents that we need. And so we have at Contour, we have assistants that will help us gather all those things. I pride myself on my assistant. Her name is Jessica. She's sweet as pie. She's like the best person ever. So she's very nurturing with people. If they're having a hard time gathering them, if there's some technical problems there that they're up against, then she'll help them, help guide them through those things as well. So nothing to be intimidated by. I understand it's like anything else in life. If it's a new process that you're going through, and maybe you're not on top of your finances as much as you think you should be, it can be intimidating. But I've never had somebody, after we have that initial phone call, say anything but the fact that it's an easier process than they anticipated.
And I think what I heard there too was that no two mortgage qualifications are alike. Meaning that your situation, your cousin Joe and your sister Susan's situation, and the steps that mortgage broker had taken and the documentation that they had requested from them was different, either because of career, job, income, source of income, what have you. Is that right?
every situation is unique. The way that the loan officer, so that's my title, so a mortgage person is called a loan officer. So the way we approach it is always different. So our borrowers or buyers situation is going to be unique to them, but then our approach as loan officers or mortgage people is going to be unique to us. So there's different things that you can get throughout the mortgage process. You get a pre-qualification, which generally means, and a lot of mortgage talk, they can be different meetings depending on who you're talking to, but a pre-qualification is when you talk to one of the big banks and they just go through verbally, what your financial situation is without reviewing any documents, which is, you don't want that. It seems easy, but like anything in life, if you're cutting corners, it's going to come back to get you at some point. You can also have a pre-approval, which is what I do for the most part. And I'll explain what I mean by the most part after that, because I never do just a verbal pre-qualification.
Okay.
That we review all of your documents. We make sure that nothing's going to go wrong later on down the process. Why is that important? So let's use another example. I had a person call me about 2 or 3 weeks ago. They were in contract to buy a home. The loan officer that they were using didn't take their time to review their pay stubs. And guess what? They had a $500 child support payment every month that disqualified them from actually closing on the home. So taking the time to review all the documents is absolutely essential. A lot of times I take it even a step further in this market. It's so competitive that we get what's called a secure buy at Contour. What that means is we take all of the documents, the application that we have, we send it into underwriting, and the underwriter reviews it. So at that point, we get a commitment, which is also called an approval. So we have a pre-qualification, which is verbal, pre-approval, which is a verbal plus the document review, and then a secure buy or a commitment or an approval, which is the verbal application, the review of the documents, and then submission to underwriting, which would shorten the length of the process once you put an offer and get accepted on a home to actually close. So it's a great program that we have here. And we've actually got numerous accepted offers through that program just within the last couple of weeks.
Okay. I certainly can back that up by saying, as a realtor, the buyers that are winning the bids today for the homes that they love are the buyers that are most prepared in the mortgage qualification process before they even get to the home and find the home that they love. So I love that you guys are just putting all the ducks in the row for the buyer, positioning them to be the strongest possible buyer in all of the bids that are out there, because it is a very competitive world for buyers right now.
Very competitive. And that's the thing. And not all banks do this because it takes up a lot of time from the underwriter. So if you think about a mortgage bank is just a business just like any other business. So when most banks view a deal, an actual transaction, that's when a client is in contract. They've gotten an accepted offer. Now we'll leverage all of the people that we have in our back office to move forward. And we're going to spend their time, energy, and resources getting the deals done. At Contour, we want to take care of our clients. We want to take care of our customers. We're based in Garden City here on Long Island, so we're a very local bank. We'll take up the resources from our underwriting department to actually get those approvals so that our clients, or the people that we're working with, are in the best hands, and we put them in the best position possible to actually get an accepted offer. So it's not something that all banks do, but we pride ourselves on doing that now, that we'll make an investment in our buyers so that they can get the homes that they want.
Between the pre-approval and the pre-qualification, a pretty significant difference, and a difference that's going to make all the difference in the world when you show up to make that offer. But one of the biggest things that I think also too, for a buyer, is assuring that you can afford the payment, assuring that you can afford every step before you go into contract and put money down on a home, before you put money down on a home inspection, and invest that money only to find out later that because of a miscalculation or the fact that maybe perhaps a bank did not calculate in advance, there might be a fall through before contract. There might be no house at the end of that closing. There might never be a closing. So, Greg, big question I get all the time. As a buyer, do I need 20% down payment to buy a home?
Yeah, it's a very common misconception out there. I actually thought that myself before I got into the mortgage business, and it always precluded me from going out and looking for a home because I just thought, how long is it going to take me to save up that 20%, especially in high market, in markets where the values are pretty high. So the reality is that no, you can depending on the property itself, you can put as little as 3.5% or even 3% down. I want to say depending on the property itself, meaning that it's a single family home. Co-ops and condos are different animals. They have their own different down payment requirements. Single family homes are probably the most easily acquired type of properties. versus a co-op and a condo, just because they have rules, whereas a single family home doesn't. Meaning that you don't really have to answer it to anybody if you're in a single family home, versus when you're in a condo, you have the HOA, and in a co-op, you have the management board. So with a single family home, yes, you can put down 3.5% or 3%. There's actually grants out there too that can help with closing costs and down payments. So if anybody has any questions about those, I'm happy to answer those for you as well.
Okay. Well, if I'm shopping around for a mortgage right now, right? If I'm shopping around for mortgage representation, not sure where to go. I got a referral from my cousin. They used a mortgage broker or a bank. They had a good experience or an okay experience. What should I be looking for in choosing a mortgage professional?
Really, to me, it's just you should call up a bunch of people, see who you're most comfortable with. If you're a first-time home buyer, which most people on this webcast are going to be, I think the most important thing would be to have somebody who has the time and patience to educate you along the way. Because at the end of the day, you're looking for the money. I mean, nobody dreams of getting a mortgage. That's not what anybody. I know my role. I know my space. I'm just the guy that provides the money.
Right.
I want to get a house. So the mortgage is just a means to an end. That's all it is. But if you have somebody who's not going to explain things to you, who's not going to take you by the hand and guide you through the whole process, it can be enormously stressful and frustrating. Because most people, myself included, I'm guilty of it too, or maybe guilty is not the right word, but anything that ever comes up in my life, I go onto the internet and I research things right away, as opposed to talking to a human being. I think just the way the world is right now. But with mortgages, what people don't realize is that the guidelines, what we call in our industry are guidelines, it just means the rules that are set forth by Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac, which are the government regulatory bodies of mortgages. They change constantly. So anything that you're going online and trying to read about, most of the times it's outdated at best or just plain wrong. So it's one of the few things in life where you should talk to an individual, talk to a human being. And that's why it's so important to work with somebody that you're comfortable with, because at the end of the day, it's really, people a lot of times are focused on rate. The rates are all the same. All the banks are pretty much right within an eighth of a point of each other, which is not too significant. It's just taking an afternoon, taking a couple hours, calling a bunch of different people and seeing who you're most comfortable with. Because once you're in contract, that's when the loan officer really takes over, and you can be dealing with the loan officer on a, if not a daily basis, for sure a weekly basis, right until the point you close. And the loan officer is going to be the one that's going to navigate a lot of the problems. I mean, a lot in our industry, we say, everybody wants a sausage, but they don't want to see how it's made. And that's really what happens. Our jobs as loan officers is to solve a lot of problems that most of the people, even on this call for the panel, don't ever really see. And the clients especially don't see. So you want somebody who's going to be both good at what they do, but then also take their time out of their busy day when they're solving all these problems and putting out these different fires to guide you and to make sure that you understand what's happening now and the next few steps.
Right. Yeah, I think it's really important to note that really it sounds like what you're shopping for when you're hiring a mortgage professional is service and communication, and to be a problem solver, to solve those problems even before they're even presented to the client in any way, shape, or form, to be able to overcome that. So, in a competitive market like it is out there right now, is there anything that as a buyer we can do to give ourselves a competitive edge over the competition?
Yes, that's our secure buy program. That's really what I was talking about before, taking the pre-qualification, the pre-approval to the next stage where we have an actual approval. It is so powerful because there are so many different offers on places. Unfortunately, we can't help you out by giving you more money for a down payment, or to increase the purchase price that you're willing to go. But we can say to the, via the buyer's agent, in which case it would be you, Kent, or if you're the listing agent on the deal, to say, listen, this person is just as secure as a cash offer. They've gone through underwriting. We have an approval. There's nothing that's going to get in the way of this deal falling apart. As a seller, I recently sold one of my homes. That was the most important thing to me. The down payment was significant somewhat. The purchase price, we actually accepted a purchase price that was less than another offer because the person that we had actually had an approval as well. So we knew that there was no chance of the deal falling apart, because from the seller's perspective, the risk is that somebody, they accept an offer on a house, they go through the underwriting process, and boom, now the deal blows up. So the seller now has to put that place back on the market. It doesn't look good for the general public when a house has been on the market, off the market, then goes back on.
What's wrong with this house?
Yeah. So the seller does not want that. So if the buyer or the buyer's agent can articulate all those things, and I always guide my people on what they say, usually email some bullet points out so that they understand exactly how to position it, that gives reassurance to the seller and to the listing agent that, listen, these people are serious. They're not going to be putting offers on homes if they weren't serious. But there's almost no possibility of the deal falling apart. When I say almost none, because there are things that are beyond our control. An appraisal not coming through, a title report that's not clear. But those are the only two things. So as far as a cash purchase is concerned, if somebody comes with a suitcase full of money, they need an appraisal 9 times out of 10, and they need clear title. So having somebody with an approval is just as good as a cash offer. We can close generally within 2 or 3 weeks. And that's just because that's the time that it takes to order the title and get it cleared.
Awesome. That sounds like a bulletproof plan to get a qualification and to get a competitive edge in today's real estate market. We are at the stage where we've located the dream home for us. We've contacted our mortgage professional. We have our qualification in line. And now the next step to make sure that we have all our ducks in a row and that we're on the right course is to call the home inspector for the home inspection. Please welcome Ron Pisano from Precision Home Inspection. Welcome, Ron.
Hi, thank you. Thanks for having me.
My first question, and a question that I have from a lot of my clients, my home buying clients out there, is where do we find the right home inspector? Where do we start? I mean, do we just flip through the yellow pages, or where do we find that right home inspector?
We get a lot of those that time, but a lot of questions like that. Yeah. To find a good home inspector, obviously ask your realtors. They work with a bunch. You can also Google, look at reviews. We are all over, social networking is a big thing today. And there's where you could find a home inspector. Make sure that when you do and when you're looking, look at the reviews, see the reviews, see past experiences from people, ask your realtor questions. And that is generally how to find a great home inspector. There's a ton of great home inspectors out there. I've been in business almost 15 years now. I've worked along other home inspectors as well. There's a ton and the industry is loaded with wonderful home inspectors.
Right. And, taking this back a couple of steps, if you remember, Ron, the way I met you was actually you were doing a home inspection on one of my listings.
Yes.
My client was there. My client was so impressed by you and your thoroughness of the home inspection that my client, the seller, hired you as the home inspector when they were purchasing a home after they sold that one.
That's correct.
So it just goes to show you, how to find the right home inspector, talk to the people that you love, talk to your realtor, talk to the professional. And in examples like this, good people Absolutely. Show up and do good home inspections and people take notice. Let me ask you this, point blank, what is the main point of the home inspection? What is the buyer trying to get out of the home inspection?
Well, my main point of a home inspection is safety first. Safety is first. Safety is the number one thing. But what is a buyer trying to get out of a home inspection? Is number one, they're trying to see what's wrong with the house, if there's anything wrong with the house, which, there's no such thing as a perfect house. And I also, always say it's a used house. You're buying a used house. Someone's lived in here for 30, 40, maybe 50 years. So this thing's going to be wrong. But we want to look, like I said, my concern is safety first. We want to inspect every single aspect of the house, all the components, structural, electrical, plumbing, AC, heat, and we're going to see. And usually what a buyer, looks at the home inspection report, we find things. And if in a matter of importance or safety, they go back to the seller and say, hey, listen, my home inspector found this. And now they use it as a negotiation tool.
Okay. Right. Okay. So let me ask you this, you brought up a good point, whereas you're buying a home, you're buying a used home, that home was built maybe 1930, 1950, 1960, 70, and now you're purchasing, so you're never going to find that perfect home without any flaws. What about new inspection? Just out of curiosity, what flaws are you finding on today's new homes under
new construction
out there?
I have found people just on new construction cutting corners.
Okay.
To save costs. And sometimes the workmanship is not where it should be.
Okay.
And that's what I'm finding on new construction.
Okay. So don't assume that, hey, this
Right.
is new construction. Do I need to do a home inspection? It's always yes.
Yes.
I should absolutely be doing a home inspection. Okay. So you walked us through the most important parts of the home inspection a moment ago. What are some of the let's say the bigger overall areas of the home inspection that we're looking on, that we're concentrating on during the duration of this home inspection?
Okay. Yeah. Like I said a few moments ago, is safety first.
Okay.
We want to make sure that the foundation of the house is structurally intact, that there's no massive cracking going on, any horizontal cracking going on. Structural integrity definitely comes first. Along with that is safety. So, and then as we go along in the components of the house, the electrical, the plumbing, the AC, the heat, we want to make sure all of those areas of the home, the roofing, is all up to par. When we leave a home inspection and I leave a home inspection, I can say, yes, thorough job done. People are going to be happy here.
Okay.
Yeah.
And at the end of the day, an inspection report, how is that received?
I email all my reports in 24 hours or less.
Okay.
They will have it in their hands.
Right.
And like I said, I discuss everything I find in a home inspection with the client right then and there. So everything I spoke to them about does not change on the report. It's the same information.
Right. This way you can do your own research as a buyer as to whether this particular flaw is an easy flaw to fix, is a harder flaw to fix, something that maybe they would want to reconsider the home if it were a big enough flaw, like a foundation.
Correct.
Flaw.
Correct.
Or something of that measure. Let me ask you this.
Good.
Does a home inspection guarantee any areas of the home for any length of time?
I've never heard of that.
Right.
I don't have a guarantee. It's at time of inspection.
Right.
Because anything can happen between time of inspection and the time you close.
Okay.
Unfortunately, there have been instances of that, where when I inspected it, everything was fine. And by the time you guys closed, something happened, everything is mechanical, everything is working. We don't have a crystal ball when it can say it's not going to be working.
Right.
So I really haven't seen a guarantee on anything.
Right. And you're right. Things can change, condition, weather, seasons change,
Sure.
and that causes things to change. I find probably one of the bigger benefits most of my clients receive on a home inspection, being with yourself during that home inspection as a home inspector, is gaining the knowledge of the mechanics, the working mechanics of the home. This is your boiler. This is how it works. These are the pipes that feed the heat. This is your main cutoff of your electric. This is the main cutoff of your water. If you're coming from an apartment, you're buying your first home, you don't think of these things.
That's true.
If not for the home inspection and the home inspection report, which shows you where these things are located, which are a necessary functionality of your home.
Yes.
So it's really an education. And every time I'm on a home inspection, I learn one or two more things. And I've been in the business for quite some time, and I've been on many home inspections, but it's always interesting. It's always an eye opener. I think you mentioned this before, that there is no perfect house, but for our last question from one of our viewers here from this past week was, what is the most common flaw that comes up in a home inspection here on Long Island? And when I'm saying Long Island, I mean, Brooklyn, Queens, Nassau, Suffolk counties combined. What's the most common flaw, Ron, that you see in home inspection?
It's so funny you ask that. The most common thing I see in home inspections that is wrong is the electrical panel.
Okay.
A lot of double taps. People are double tapping where they should. Now, double taps is 2 wires to 1 breaker. I don't know why they're doing it. There's plenty of room in the panel. But that is the most common thing that I find that I call out on home inspections.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. And potentially I mean, that sounds like it could potentially be a fire hazard.
Well, sure. You're double tapping into one breaker. So it's two wires to one breaker. And if that connection becomes loose, it throws an arc of electricity. Right. And that can cause a fire.
Right.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So again, the home inspection is another level of insurance during this process.
Sure, it's educating people.
Yeah.
It's knowledge is always the greatest thing in the world. Education's the greatest thing in the world, and the more knowledge you have, the better off you are. And so I love it to be an educational process and a nice manner, and people walk away saying, wow, I never knew that.
Right.
And even the homeowner says,
right.
wow, I never knew that was even going on in my house. And it's always great to have an educated consumer as well as an educated seller as well. So it's fantastic. And I love what I do. And I love crawling in through the homes. And, not to say I love to find things, but they do present itself and we have to investigate. And, where both parties are saying, wow, I never knew that. Let's get that repaired so it's safe.
Well, you know what? I've seen you in action. I've seen you on your hands and knees crawling through crawl spaces. You're a better man than I. You're better equipped for the job, Ron. And I appreciate your time and I appreciate your valuable knowledge that you bring to the table.
Thank you so much. Have a great day.
You too, Ron. Thanks.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
All right. So we have an accepted offer. Good news. I call you on the phone as your realtor. I say, congratulations. We have an accepted offer for the home that we saw this weekend. Now, this is where the fun begins. Walking through the process of the contract process is going to be none other than Stuart Adler of ASB Law, real estate attorney. Welcome, Stuart.
My pleasure and privilege to be here. Thank you, Ken.
Thank you so much, Stuart. Stuart, a lot of questions had come in this past week regarding real estate law, regarding the real estate law process. So the first being, how should I choose my legal representation? How should I choose the right attorney when I'm purchasing a home? Where should I start?
I'm sorry. I am a firm believer in the 4 R's. You should look to your realtor. You should look to recommendations. You should rely upon your own intuition. And lastly, make sure that it's a real estate attorney. Okay. Right. All of those things. A realtor is going to guide you the right way. All of your professionals all want the same thing. Take you on this journey to buy your home, and they want to make sure that you have the best guidance and best knowledge available to you. And it's all one common goal. So realtors know, attorneys have worked with attorneys out there. They know who they work with well and who will accomplish that goal, and look out for the purchaser. Right. Next, most people know somebody who's closed recently, has closed in the past. Ask them what their experience was. Do they want to recommend the attorney that they used? And they will hopefully get, hey, he was great. I get a lot of recommendations from people who said, so-and-so used you, and they told me I should give you a call. Absolutely. Lastly, before you pick your attorney, despite what everybody is saying, you should call them and have a conversation with them, because you need to have that feeling that, one, you can work with them, and two, this is a person who knows what they're doing and is going to be looking out for you. And then lastly, all real estate attorneys want to work with other real estate attorneys, okay? Right. The little pecking order that I just went through, what we want to avoid, and no disrespect to anyone, is to say, oh, my brother-in-law, he's a big-time personal injury attorney. He'll handle it. That's what I think you want to avoid. The real estate attorneys that do this all the time, we know each other, we know the realtors, we know the ground rules, and we can get it done for you.
So let me ask you this. Here's a funny question. A lot of the time I speak to my associates in neighboring states. I speak to some of my clients who have moved to neighboring states, or some of my clients that are relocating from neighboring states far and wide, and they're coming here to New York. And some of them don't understand why we even need a real estate attorney involved in the transaction in the first place. In a lot of states, the realtor puts together the contract. So we're here in New York State. Why is there a need? Why is it so important to have a real estate attorney backing us up?
All right, let me start off by telling you that I wish I had a dime for every time somebody asked me that same question about the out-of-state contracts, okay? One, this is probably, especially for a first-time home buyer, the largest purchase you're going to make up to that point in your life and maybe ever in your lifetime. So you should have the best guidance and protection that is available to you. Two, the saying is everything is all right until it's not. I can, again, not even go through how many times somebody asked me, hey, could you take a look at this? My brother bought a house in Florida and something's just not matching up. My sister-in-law bought a place in California and something is just not right. And when I look through it, I can find little things that went wrong because nobody was specifically looking out for the purchaser's interest or the seller's interest. It was just, hey, we're going to get this done and we're going to push around the numbers and the agreements so it just gets done.
When does a real estate attorney come into play, Stuart? I mean, when is it time to give you a call in the part of the transaction?
I am a firm believer that as soon as possible. As a purchaser, you should have all your professionals lined up, right in order, from your realtor, your mortgage person, your even home inspector, and your real estate attorney. Have them all lined up, the sooner the better. So as you were alluding to with Greg, everything can move once it's accepted, especially in this market. Let's not have the purchaser making selections, slow things down, or trying to find an attorney and get a hold of an attorney. I love the fact that purchasers call me, say, I'm out there looking. I think I'm going to be making an offer very shortly. Be ready. My realtor, so-and-so, is going to be contacting you, and we're ready to hit the ground running.
Stuart, as a buyer in a real estate contract, what are some of the most important aspects of that contract for an attorney to attend to look after as a buyer to know about?
Okay. In a standard real estate contract in this area, the standard contract that is used, there are 28 clauses, a total of 28 clauses. Now, attorneys can attach riders, addendas to the contract, but there's only 28 in the standard contract. And of those 28, I think 5 of them are important to a purchaser. A purchaser should be cognizant of them and aware of those 5 clauses. The first clause is just a clause that states and is called personal property. It will list everything that possibly could be included in that purchase that is attached to the house. That is important. Details matter. Know what is coming with the house. And there could be little things in these times, something you have televisions on the wall that are bracketed. Are the brackets included? Is the TV included? I have a deal that's going on now with a Murphy bed. We wanted to know, is the Murphy bed included? So all those sorts of things. You walk into beautiful bathrooms now that have these gorgeous mirrors on. Is the mirror staying or is it leaving with the seller? It kind of makes the bathroom. So clause number 2, the personal property clause, know what's included, know what's excluded.
Okay.
Then I would say the most important clause in a real estate contract is the clause whereby it states that it's contingent upon the purchaser being approved for a mortgage. Okay. It states how much that mortgage is for, what the time frame is that the purchaser has to obtain that mortgage approval. And more importantly, what the purchaser needs to know is that once a commitment is issued, they are in, they are locked in, and it's up to them to fulfill the conditions that are listed on that commitment. They assume that risk. So getting back to selecting the right professionals, you should also have a lot of confidence in your mortgage person that once that commitment comes out, that you are on solid ground.
Right.
Okay. So those are 2 clauses. All right. The third clause is a clause that says that the transaction is an as-is transaction.
Okay.
That language is quite often confused. What it means is that it's as is at the time of contract with reasonable wear and tear until the time of closing. I like to say what you saw is what you're getting.
Right.
There is one caveat in the standard contract that says, yes, what you saw is what you're getting, but also that all the plumbing, heating, electricity, air conditioning, if any, machinery in the property, appliances on the property will be in working order, and the roof will be free of leaks. Again, very important clause. Be aware that that is what you're getting. If it says something different, you're not getting a standard deal. Those are the standard representations, and I like to say they're the minimum representations that a purchaser should be getting in their contract.
Right.
Another important clause is the clause that states the closing date. In New York, unlike other states,
right,
we have this strange language that's called on or about.
That's right.
And we will put a date in there quite often. You're going to close on or about, and we pick a date that's 60 days from the contract or close to 60 days from the contract. That's fairly standard. So if we say you're going to close on or about June 1st, I can tell you I've done close to 1 million closings maybe. And the amount of times I've closed on that date that's stated in the contract, I can count probably on one hand.
Right.
It's just saying you're going to close on or about that date, but the on or about connotation, the legal meaning that it has, and that is understood to have, is that either side can postpone for up to 30 days.
Right.
Okay. So it's really not setting the closing date, it's setting the outside date whereby purchaser or seller can push it back to that date. If you have an on or about date that says June 1st and everybody's ready to close on May 20th, you can close on May 20th. If everybody's ready on June 5th, you can close on June 5th. That date is just supposed to limit that you're not supposed to go past June 30th.
That's right. Okay.
And then the last important clause that everybody should know about, and it is a legalese clause to an extent, is there is a clause in the contract that says for the purchaser to have to close, not that a purchaser doesn't want to close, but a seller has to meet certain conditions. And the important conditions are, one, that a seller has to produce COs or certificates of occupancy for the structures that exist on the premises. A CO means that any structure that's built on the premises is legal, and they're distributed and issued by the building department in the town or village where you're located. All right. So you definitely need COs for the house, for the garage, any extensions, additions. And then it comes into a gray area or an acceptability area, because in Nassau County, for example, you need COs for everything. You need COs for decks, sheds, awnings, porticos. Does everybody get them? Not even close. Okay. So those are ancillary structures, and most good real estate attorneys that are representing the seller will say, we're not responsible for getting it, but we're getting you COs and we're getting you confirmation that the house, any extensions, any additions, okay, and the garage are all legal. So that's an extremely important clause because it defines what the seller has to produce for you with regards to legal structures. And then there is that clause that I alluded to in when I was speaking about as is, where we're talking about the representation that all of the plumbing, heating, electricity, and all of those things will be in working order on the day of closing. Right. And that's really, I know I just threw a lot at you, but those are the important clauses that purchasers should all be aware of.
Well, the contract process is the most important, right? Process of besides the home that you love and getting the keys and building a life in the home. The contract process is what is going to protect you. And in a moment, we're going to take a look at another form of protection. But Stuart, just last question we had come in one of the comments is, what are some of the most common mistakes made in the real estate transaction? And as a real estate attorney with, offering the right representation, how can we alleviate some of these possibilities? I mean, what do you see? What do you see come up the most? It might be one of those 5 caveats, right? Or those 5 clauses. But what are some of the things in today's day and age that comes up the most that really can be alleviated just with the right representation?
Okay. What you alluded to before, and you used the word, and it is the key to any real estate transaction, communication.
Right.
Everybody has to be on the same page and communicating. The problems arise. A purchaser's attorney is responsible for ordering a title search. And what a title search does, it makes sure that the seller can convey good title to the purchaser. They're the owner. There are no liens on the property. Okay, there are no agreements that wouldn't allow a purchaser to use this as a single-family residential home. Okay. Right. Now, that should be ordered right away. Some attorneys, for some reason, don't order it right away. But if you're communicating with everybody, the contract comes in my office, our process is immediately to order the title search the day the contract comes in and put everybody on the email so they know it's been ordered, and title companies respond to that with a confirmation. You know it's been ordered. Then when that title search comes in, it has to be reviewed right away. Okay. I know attorneys, and sadly to say, it's the attorneys that don't do this. They don't look at the title search for days, weeks sometimes, thinking that, oh, it's probably all good, but you have to make sure. And then everybody's ready to close, and an issue that has arisen that's going to take 2 weeks sometimes maybe to fix, that is in the title report, has not been dealt with. So communication is the key. The professional has to order the title search right away, a survey right away, okay? And those things, when they come in, they have to be reviewed and they have to be dealt with.
Okay. Stuart, thank you. I mean, just that right there, that's one of the biggest common problems I see is title is running around like a chicken without a head, 2, 3 weeks, 4 weeks before closing, trying to solve a title issue when this could have been alleviated right from the beginning by choosing the right representation that really just, dots all the I's and crosses all the T's like yourself. Stuart, thank you so much for joining us today, and thank you for your wealth of knowledge.
Again, my pleasure.
Once we're situated and we're well into contract, one of the last stages in the home stretch of this real estate transaction is homeowners insurance. Welcome, Matthew Salerno. When it comes to home insurance, where should I start? Where do I get started? Do I open Yellow Pages, or how do I find you?
No, you listen to your realtor, your mortgage banker, your attorney. That's really the best way to do it. 2 things. I'll start off with somebody that currently has homeowners insurance briefly. The best thing to do is grab a copy of your current policy and email it over to me for a full review. That's really the only way. If someone's going to be, oh, well, how much you're paying? And those are the 2 main questions. Chances are they're not looking out for your best interest as far as coverage. Also, we've seen the market increase drastically over the past 1.5 years, 2 years. You want to protect your home. There's no doubt. Now, when it comes to new home purchase, what I love, because it's really the best thing for me to have up front, is the appraisal from the bank. Now, if the appraisal was waived or anything, that's okay. That's not really typical. But most of the time, if there is an appraisal, that's the first thing I like to review. And then what I'm going to do is we will have a conversation. I'm going to review the appraisal, and I will call you. We'll go through all the questions. It takes about 10 minutes, 15 minutes, not long, depending on what you're looking for. Honestly, sometimes I've been on the phone for 2 hours, honestly, depending on what a client's looking for. Right. And then what we will do is go out on your behalf and do all the work for you, all the shopping. So okay. I can't tell you how many times I just had one today. New purchase, the appraisal wasn't in yet. Client wanted to get moving on it. Totally fine. Then the listing said the house was 3,200 square feet. Okay. So I said, listen, I'll quote it out. And by the way, homeowners insurance coverage is based off of rebuild cost, not market value. So this client in particular is buying a home for, I think it was 1.4 million. Okay. Now I went through everything. I was on the phone with her. I'm looking at her auto, her umbrella policy. And I said to her, listen, I will work up the numbers based off of this home being 3,200 square feet. I said, however, once the appraisal comes in, please send it over to me for my review. Sure enough, the appraisal, the house is 2,800 square feet. So I was able to reduce the rebuild costs. I'm not here to drive up your costs. I'm here to do the right job, honest, forthright. That's what we do. So then, client emailed me. I had her proposals all ready to go, and I was actually about to send it to her. And she then emailed me the appraisal. So I said, this is awesome. I'm going to adjust the coverage accordingly. So that's why, sometimes the listing, they have a higher square footage to make the house more attractive. Sometimes they have a lower square footage for tax purposes. Right. So there could be a million different reasons why, but I don't go by, I don't go by the any link on the internet. Sometimes, a lot of the time it's pretty accurate, but there are times where it's absolutely not.
Okay.
Yeah.
Let me ask you this: with inflation, everything going up in the world, our insurance rates going up.
Yeah, 100%.
What can we expect in 2022 moving forward?
What I'm seeing is the inflation guards, and a lot of people are probably seeing this or hearing it from their friend who's redoing a kitchen, a bathroom, or doing a major construction rental project at their home. Just from what I've seen that comes across my desk, builders risk policies or just homeowners policies. The carriers, some of the carriers will use $200, depending on the carrier and the house. There's many different things that go into it, but there's a cost per square foot formula that the carriers use. A lot of them have interior computer systems where you enter all the data on the home, which I get from the appraisal to make sure everything's correct. And then, there's no doubt. It's everything. Projects are taking longer to complete. People are out of their homes longer. So you have to think, when you think about homeowners insurance, God forbid you have a really big claim and you can't live in your home, the insurance company pays for you to live somewhere else while your home's being rebuilt. Right. So that's another factor of the cost per square foot. It's not just if this was vacant land tomorrow and I had a 3,000 square foot house, what is it going to cost me to build? Because I have that conversation with builders a lot of times. They're like, well, you're going higher on the square footage. I don't need that. No, you do need that because the insurance company isn't just rebuilding your home. They have to demo the house. They have to cart away the debris. They have to put you, like I said, someplace to stay. There's a lot of other costs that, unless you're in insurance or somehow involved in the industry, you are not fully aware. But yes, there is no doubt. I would say, to answer your question, I'm seeing it probably at 7.5%, 10%. Some carriers are going, higher than that, but it's definitely, it's across the board. Every carrier is taking an increase. On the lower side, like I said, 7 to 8%. Some of them I'm seeing 13, 14%. And that's because of the reasons I just, higher rebuild costs, higher labor costs, supply demand chain taking longer. It's just that's where we're at right now.
Okay. As a future homeowner, shopping around in the homeowners insurance world, how do I assure that I'm getting the best coverage for my money?
Well, the previous speakers mentioned this. It's really about who you deal with. And what I say about, if you call a 1-800 number and the person you're speaking to at that 1-800 number, I'm going to say, you're never going to get that same person on the phone ever again. Right. So they may have written the policy for you. You're buying whatever the cost is of your home. And again, somebody said this before, it's probably most likely, if you're a first-time home buyer, probably the largest purchase you've ever made year to date in your life.
Oh, yes, definitely.
So when you have somebody who's giving you, I am a tri-state area agent. When you're getting quotes from somebody who is in Texas or Ohio or any other part of the country, Florida, that's another big one, or overseas, I have that too, or clients have told me that. They're literally, it's a call center and they're just looking to turn and burn and not advise and educate. Buying a house in 2022, and again, like we said, the rates are changing. Okay. And for anybody to say they're going, they're going down, they honestly don't know what they're doing. Now, let's say I write your homeowner's policy. Let's say you do the auto, whatever, or I just write your homeowner's insurance or your flood insurance. I could do that too. I don't have to sell you an auto, an umbrella, all these other things. I could just give you a straight homeowner's policy. And let's say in 2, 3, 4 years, 5 years, you're unhappy. You look at your renewal and you're like, oh, it went up. For the most part, it goes up. But if you see it increasing where it's kind of, well, that seems a little off. And I tell my clients this, then I say, listen, shoot me an email, give me a call, text me, say, hey, Maddie, could you look at the renewal? And I have an entire team dedicated to remarketing current clients to make sure that they are getting the best rate.
Right.
But number two is, especially now in this climate, this market, I'm getting a lot of phone. Hey, Matt, do I have enough coverage to rebuild my home?
Right.
And there are inflation guards built into all insurance policies, but the way the inflation is at currently, what's built into those policies may or may not be enough.
Okay.
So that's something you want to check out. Another thing, if you do an extension, an addition, you add on livable square footage, you want to call up your insurance professional and say, hey, I just did 1,000 square foot renovation. I added on X amount of square feet. Could we please do redo the cost estimator?
Right.
and make sure you have the proper coverage. So yes, pricing is extremely important. There's no doubt, but also it's the coverage in the event of a claim, because you may, Kent gets you the home, Greg gets you the mortgage, Stu's your attorney. You may be dealing with me. If you live in that house the rest of your life, you're going to have the longest relationship with your insurance guy.
Matt, a couple last questions that, especially here on Long Island, whether you're living on certain areas on the North Shore or whether you're on the South Shore here on Long Island.
Yeah.
And when I say Long Island, of course, I'm including Brooklyn, Queens, and the boroughs of Nassau and Suffolk counties as well, is flood insurance. What's the current situation with flood insurance?
FEMA has changed the rates this past October. Okay. And that's on new business, new purchases, and on renewals, it actually went into effect April 1st.
Okay.
To answer your question, the best thing a client can do, or a realtor can do, the listing agent, or whoever it may be, is get a copy of the seller's flood policy.
Okay.
And if a client that's really the best way to start. It's get a copy of the current flood policy, if there is one, or if there's an elevation certificate on file. Those are the two things. Somebody says, oh, I need a flood quote. I'll say, hey, could you get me a copy of current owner's flood and current owner's elevation certificate if they have one?
Okay.
The grandfathering is being phased away. Can you take over? They've made it easier to take over somebody's policy. However, it's not going to be the same rates. It used to be you have to take over a client's flood policy. If their flood policy renewed if the flood policy renewed May 15th, you would take over that previous owner's flood policy on the 15th. Okay. At closing, Stu would make sure that funds were set aside to pay the previous flood policy. Now it's when you're binding a flood policy and a home policy, you could do it consecutively on the same day. Okay. But flood is one of those things where you want to make sure everything's locked up and you get no surprises, because that's what you don't want, or surprises. I have that where, other situations that no one looked into, and they already signed contracts, not Kent's clients, but it's, they're almost at the finish line. They called me up, like, oh yeah, I was just told that I need flood insurance. I said, okay.
Right.
So that's what you don't, that's 100%, call first before you sign papers.
So Matt, I thank you for your wealth of knowledge today. Thank you so much for your time.
No problem. Thank you for having me.
Thank you. And just like that, walking you through the process from A through Z, from vision to keys in pocket at the closing table and opening the door to your dream home. If I or any of my team members can help you understand the process even further, please feel free to reach out. All the professionals that you see here today, I've personally worked with. If I can refer any professional or any team of professionals to you in the real estate law, mortgage industry, homeowners insurance, home inspection industry, or beyond, please let me know. I'd love to make your home buying experience that much easier. If I can help you answer any questions or navigate the waters of the real estate experience here on Long Island and New York, including Queens, Brooklyn, Manhattan, Bronx, Nassau, and Suffolk County, feel free to reach out. I'd love to help in any way I can. Above all else, be well, and I'll see you next time.